So Glenn, what's your take on what's going on in the world at the moment? Because it really feels like there's this kind of density, and a
Mm,
lot of other spiritual people that I speak to have felt it since
mm,
2020, but it's kind of continued this very kind of heavy, dense,
mm.
chaotic energy where things aren't really flowing, and there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of kind of corruption coming out. Like what's your take on all of that?
A lot of it is that, yeah, that there's that great quote that things are not getting worse. The veil is just being lifted.
Mm,
So we are seeing through all the illusions. And I think those of us who are sensitive and
yeah.
awake, we can see it clearly. And it feels like the light is a more powerful force. It's going to win through. It's going to come. We're going to come out the other side in a great place. And the awakening process is, painful at times because there are a lot of people who are not awake, and you come across those people and you can't believe they're seeing the world the way they do, and it's
Yeah.
frustrating. But slowly more and more people are awakening,
Yeah.
and they say that when it gets to, because we're all connected up through the collective unconscious, that Carl Gustav Jung theory that once enough of us awaken, then naturally the rest of humanity will awaken as well, because it gets to that tipping point and we're all connected up.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think, you mentioned like we are transitioning from this 3D sort of matrix to 5D,
Yeah.
and it's like the birth of a new age. And,
Mm,
before any birth, there's, struggle, and it's, this
mm,
upheaval and pain and
yeah.
suffering.
Yeah.
And we're going through that, we're in that now. And, and it can be tough at times. I've felt it over the last couple of years, being a lot on my own. And, my close family are all on the same page.
Yeah.
I think because the ultimate way out of all this is to raise your consciousness, your vibrational energy, then
Yeah.
all the fear stuff, all that lower vibrational matrix crap doesn't impact you because you're operating at a different frequency.
Yeah.
And you said a really good thing before we came on. You said that, people who are very down the rabbit hole and, go on all the marches and that kind of thing. And,
Yeah.
that can almost be another trap in itself, because you get a lot of, that can generate a lot of fear and
Yeah.
anxiety in
Yeah.
you.
And
And that
negativity as well.
and negativity, and you're wide awake, you're seeing what's going on, but it's not always a good thing. You've sometimes got to step back out of that and come from a place of higher consciousness and love, love for those souls that are lost, love for the, yeah, just spread love around and be the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah. That is really, really good advice. And you mentioned it's an ongoing process. You don't just get to the mountaintop and that's it. You're constantly working at it.
Yeah.
Wanted to ask you how did you incorporate ayahuasca plant medicine in with that? Did that facilitate your spiritual journey with the clearing?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I'd been on the healing path for a number of years, and things were, going really well. I was selling a lot of recordings. The business was growing, and I was always, it was always on my radar. If I learned about something new that could help me move forward, get clearer, get lighter, I was drawn to it like a moth to a flame. And I was actually reading Sting's biography. And the first chapter of that, he talks about this ayahuasca ceremony that he did down in Brazil. And as soon as I read it, I was just captivated, because he talked about this medicine that the shamans use down there, that when you drink this brew in a ceremonial setting, you get these amazing visions and insights. It's also an amazing thing for clearing, illuminating your shadow, and revealing wounds and traumas that you can clear. And so I was, incredibly drawn to it. And at the time, I was looking at retreats down in Peru, because I
Yeah.
was, and they say that when you are at the point where you want to journey with ayahuasca, the medicine calls you and it will
It
find
finds
you.
you. Yeah, yeah.
And so I was on that path. I was so up for a ceremony.
Mm.
And at that time, my wife at the time and myself, we'd gone down to a cafe in Brighton because we heard there was an event there. There was a band playing, and it was quite a low key thing. There was, we got there and the band were playing, and during the set, this guy was saying that he did ceremonies, medicine ceremonies. And as soon as he said that, it was like a radar went off. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my God. And I couldn't wait to speak to him afterwards.
Yeah.
And so I chatted to him. He said, I've, spent a number of years in Peru, and the shamans there had given him permission to bring the medicine back to the UK. Somehow he got it out there from Peru to the UK. And he had this little place down in outside of Ashford in the Kent countryside, and it was tucked away. And he said, "Oh, I'm actually got a ceremony on Saturday." And I said, "Well, is there any space?" And he said, "Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
we've got one place left." He limited it to 6, and there was one place left.
Oh my God, the synchronicities.
It was that,
Yeah.
when you're on that journey and you're on the healing path, the synchronicities that happen is incredible, because your guides, your
Yeah.
angels, your helpers, they want you to fulfill your soul contract. They
Yeah.
want you down there, raising your vibration, doing the work that you checked in for. So you get guided, you get help. There's
Your
lots of,
soul's work. Yeah.
and it was, so I went down there, and that first medicine ceremony was like nothing I've ever experienced. And when I was younger, I did, tons of acid. I did heroin a couple of times. I smoked it. And so I'd done a lot when I was younger.
Yeah.
But this was something completely different. It was like, the biggest heart opening, the biggest revelation that I'd ever had in my life. And I saw things and felt things that I'd never felt before, because the medicine is something that, is so powerful and so amazing and so intelligent that
Mm.
it gives you things that you need to heal, that you can be completely blindsided by. And I'd been a hypnotherapist for like 10 years, but I was still blindsided by these things, and they came up in this
Oh.
ceremony.
Can you share? I know it's quite personal, but would you be happy to share some of what came up?
Yeah, one of the things in that ceremony that came up was that I I was, I came from my patriarchal downline. My father, my grandfather, his father, they'd all been quite successful. They'd all made money, but they'd not always done it in the most holistic, honest ways, shall we say.
Ethical, yeah.
Ethical, yeah, that's the word. My dad, it was nothing terrible, but they were duckers and divers, wheeler and dealers. My granddad was a bare knuckle boxer. He fought on the streets and he'd make money from fights, and he was a bookmaker, and he had a really colorful, tough life. And so in the ceremony, I was immersed in this, and suddenly I got this vision of like my patriarchal downline. And I saw their faces like it was like the presidents in the rocks at Mount Rushmore. I could see their faces in these
Wow.
rocks.
Yeah.
And they were saying to me, you've changed the direction of our family. You're changing the family karma because you've gone in a different direction and you're operating from a place of love and higher consciousness. Keep doing, because you're raising the vibration of the whole family downline, and you're healing the family karma. And
That's
it was like this, and
incredible.
I felt this massive feeling of love from them. And when I came out of the ceremony, I learned afterwards that is a byproduct of ayahuasca, that your ancestors communicate with you. Your female patriarchal and matriarchal downline will often communicate with you, but I didn't know that at the time, so it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
I had that in my head before. And yeah, it was an amazing revelation, and it kind of reinforced, my belief that I was on the right path. And but to think about, healing the family karma because of the work I'm doing now, that was a new concept to me. And I love
I
that.
love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
look at Lee now, my oldest son, Lee
Oh,
is
yeah.
he's a beautiful soul. I love that boy so much. He's such a, we're best of mates. We're
Yeah,
always laughing, and he's, immersed in the Krishna work. I know you've spoken to him about Krishna consciousness, and
yeah,
he got so immersed in that, he was teaching me stuff because his spiritual
yeah,
knowledge was amazing. He was further on than I was at his age.
yeah,
So yeah, it's that's an important thing. When you do this work, you can actually heal your family karma and take the family downline in a different direction. And so yeah, that was another sort of byproduct of it. And what happens as well in ayahuasca, when these things come up, when these wounds and these traumas come up, from your family or from your own past, they come up to a point where you literally vomit them out.
yeah, yeah.
You purge them. For
Hmm.
anyone who doesn't know what ayahuasca is, you're actually having a physical sickness, and this shadow stuff is coming out of you, and
Yeah,
it's incredible. There's been stories where people have vomited, they're at certain points, and there've been, snakes in a bucket. They look down, they've actually vomited up a reptile, and all kinds of stuff. It's
yeah.
mad,
Because
crazy.
you're clearing all the negativity. And what I
You're
love about your
clearing.
story is that kind of ancestral,
Mm,
their wounds as well. They've come down. Not only have you had that kind of connection with the
mm.
divine, the spirit world, your ancestors, but you're actually helping them from the other side
Yeah,
to heal all these wounds. So you've broken the chain,
yeah, broken the cycle.
the
That cycle.
cycle. Yeah,
And I think we're doing it now. All the light workers, we're all doing our work in our own way, and we're slowly raising the consciousness of the planet. And
yeah,
we are going through that great awakening now, aren't we? And
yes, yeah, we
and
are.
it's what we've been through the last couple of years is it's been just crazy, isn't it?
Yeah,
And we're starting to see, have clarity and see what's going on in the world, and recognize that there is a matrix of control around the world that we've been caught in. From the day you enter school, you become part of that matrix. The teachings, the things you learn in school are all
yeah,
part of that. And but when you raise your consciousness, you start to see through it all, and you
yeah,
you step out of it, and you start to become more sovereign, more in your power. You're not, you don't become a slave to the pharmaceutical companies as you get older. You don't,
yeah.
get drunk at weekends, and go through that whole thing of, you raise your vibrate, and you don't, that stuff bypasses you.
Yeah, like being trapped in a system that you just don't feel that you can get out of.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
what would be your advice to anyone who happens to be watching this that is kind of not really content, not fulfilled inside, but they're just kind of going along, doing the motions with what society thinks
Mm,
we should do, or, trapped kind
mm.
of in a low vibrational place where they don't see what else there is. Like what advice, just because you've been through that and you've transformed, what would you say?
You have to approach it on a very holistic basis. So, for me, when I made that turning point, I stopped smoking in my late 20s. I'm not teetotal. I've had times when I've been teetotal for 2 or 3 years, but if I had a party, we had a party here at the weekend and had a little tipple. So at that time, I really cut down the amount of booze I drank.
Yeah,
Because like a typical young English guy, you drink. That's what young guys in Britain do, and probably all
yeah,
around the world. But that in itself, that if you're boozing regularly, it lowers your vibrational energy.
yeah,
There's so many traps in this world. Food, junk food. Even sort of mindless TV, like the reality
yeah,
soaps, all that, and pornography is readily available. All of these things are traps that lower your vibration.
yeah,
And you have to think of it from a holistic viewpoint that you're going to cut these things out. And if you've got any kind of addictions, you have to work on those, focus on those first. You can really enjoy the abundance and not feel any guilt, because sometimes people have that abundance and they feel guilty because other people are struggling. But you
mm,
let go of all that. You understand that abundance is just an energy, a
yeah,
giving and receiving. And
yeah,
because I know people who've got absolute fortunes, but they don't understand. abundance, true abundance, and they've got unhappy lives, really unhappy lives, and
Mm.
they're mean with themselves, they're mean with other people. I can think of somebody I know really well who's caught up in that, and you can't always help them because they're stuck in that and they don't want to look at anything deeper, the reason behind it. They just think life is dealing them bad cards, and
Yeah.
it's that kind of thing, and you have to also, it also takes you out of that victim mentality as well. That's another important point, because
Yeah.
when I was struggling, I blamed everything that happened to me on my childhood,
Mm.
and I was caught up in that victim mentality, and
That's very easy to do when you've had a rough childhood.
yeah, but it's disempowering because
It
you're
is. Yeah.
blaming your circumstance on something that happened, years before. And so taking responsibility for things that have happened to you, even if you felt they weren't your fault, is a really liberating thing to do.
Yeah.
And I was able to do that. That took me a while because I was still very angry about my childhood for a long time, you know.
Mm.
But I did, almost did some of the things I did were like, out there. I did sort of a little bit of primal scream therapy where you literally focus on the anger that you're holding, and you get into your breath, you start to breathe really deeply and breathe it away.
Yeah.
And I lived in when I lived in England, I lived in a place that was on its own. There was no neighbors around for miles, and I had a hot tub in the back garden. So I used to sit in the hot tub and I literally bringing these things up from the past and screaming them out. I was like this nutter sitting in a hot tub, but there was a method behind it. And
Yeah.
so I did a lot of work on that, healing the anger and the sort of things that were still in my unconscious that were holding me back, because the things that people had done to me as a kid, and the beatings I had as a kid,
Yeah.
though I was angry about them as an adult, but those events had long gone, and the people that had done it had long forgotten about it, So I was just hanging on to it. And I realized
Yeah.
that. I realized I had to let it go, get it out of me.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of work on that as well.
Did plant medicine help you with that as well? Was there any other experiences you had with plant medicine, ayahuasca, that helped you clear the trauma from your
Yeah,
childhood?
massively, massively.
Really?
Yeah. And I've done 7 or 8 now, in England, Spain, and here in Portugal. And each one has been different, completely different. And some of them have been really heavy, really dark, where I've had to, face some really difficult things that have come up. And
Right.
at times, because you go beyond your ego, your identity, when you're in that state, and you can feel quite lost. You feel like you could almost step out of this life and choose to check out when you're in this
Yeah.
state.
Yeah.
I felt at one point I almost had that choice, but I don't know whether you could actually make that happen. There's yeah, it was amazing. But yeah, every ceremony has helped me heal different things, and it showed me different things at different times about my past, about the future, about my family dynamic, that
Yeah.
it reveals the truth of your life. That's what it does. It's like a truth serum.
Right. So at
And
that
there's that,
moment, it's very revealing, isn't it? That at that moment,
so revealing. It's like,
yeah.
because in life you sometimes wear different hats for different relationships.
Yes.
We all do that. And it's so all of those little subtleties come up to you, and you see the truth of your relationships, and even the BS that you sometimes create in them. It doesn't hold back. It's all laid bare to you. And so that can be quite difficult, because you come out of the medicine with these new insights, and it can change certain relationships
Yeah.
because they're sort of laid bare. And I've had instances where I've kind of old friends of I've been in the things that held us together when we were younger suddenly go, and you realize it's just history, and we've gone to different places, and that's happened a few times. But then you connect with people on the same journey, and so new friends come along that are on the same path. But yeah, the medicine, it's like a massive truth serum. And Graham Hancock, has this great quote that every politician before they enter the house should experience 10 ayahuasca ceremonies,
Yeah. Oh my God,
because
the world would be a different place.
they'd never be able to lie again. They'd
Yeah.
have to tell the truth, because you can't, once you've been on that journey, you
Yeah.
can't you can't tell lies. You know, it's an amazing thing. It's incredible.
What was, can you give us another example, not example, that's the wrong word, another experience of what you were shown? I
And
don't
then
want to go too personal,
images.
but anything that's pertinent. What about the one, do you remember we were speaking about the one with a game, it was a game show host? Because you said that on the last interview. Do you remember in 2019? Do
Yeah,
you remember?
yeah, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so when I
You
started
don't you don't have to, by the way. I'm
no,
just
no, I'm happy to. It's quite a
okay.
funny story. I was kind of, so when I started to do well, like 15 years ago, I bought a big house, £1 million house. I had a villa in Florida, bought myself an Aston Martin, and it all happened quite quickly when I think about it. I'd gone from living in a tower block in Penge to about 10 years later, having all the material things that I'd ever dreamt of. And it was, but one interesting thing about that was when I was living in that tower block and driving around in an old banger that kept breaking down, I was using the law, I was visualizing driving an Aston Martin. I really wanted to, because I was a young man, I wanted to experience a bit of material abundance. So I
Yeah.
used to visualize driving an Aston Martin, the leather steering wheel, putting my foot on the accelerator, hearing the roar of the engine,
Yeah.
driving off, and all that. And I did that for, like a couple of years. That was a big goal, with the big house and all that. But my reality was I was flat broke at the time. But I immersed myself in this. And yeah, it was about 10 years later, I was driving up to buy this Aston Martin for cash in Birmingham at a showroom. And I bought it and I drove back, and I was like, I felt like I was on this massive high. I was like, oh, wow, I've manifested this amazing
Yeah.
car. And on the day that I did that, a picture of that Aston Martin kind of fell out on my computer. I just clicked on a link and it was there. And I thought, wow, I've been meditating on that 10 years before. And here I am going to buy it. And it was that kind of, wow moment, a real epiphany that, everything that I'd focused on, I'd manifest in the material world in this, I'd made it happen, And so, for a little while after that, I was suddenly, really, I did get a little bit up myself. I won't lie. The ego kicked in, and I didn't have the sort of spiritual knowledge at that time that I've maybe got now. And I was sort of, a little bit not over the top, because everyone around me was, they were good. My PA has always said she's the grounding department whenever I got carried away.
Yeah.
And but I was a kid who'd been kicked out of school at 15. I'd struggled like crazy, couldn't hold
Yeah.
down any job, and suddenly I was driving this Aston Martin, and so for a little while, yeah, the ego got a little bit the better of me. And I remember doing a plant medicine ceremony at the time, or soon after that. And one thing that came to me was this image of myself as like this game show host, all cheesy. I smiled and it went ping, and I was, tanned with this fake tan, this
Right
big
turn.
hair, and it was, and I was thinking, Jesus, this is not me. Why are you showing me this? And I was almost arguing with what was going on in my psyche. I was saying, I'm not like this. Why? But it was showing me. It was showing me that if you don't check this part of yourself, this aspect, you're going to end up down this path. All showbiz.
Wow.
People are using your recordings. They're saying lovely things about you. You need to find a balance in all this. You need to adjust to this new abundance, this life you're living. And it was like this amazing reality check. And it
A
clicked to me.
humbling almost.
It was a humbling, exactly that. And it was kind of showing me, it wasn't saying, this is you now. It was saying that if you're not careful, there's a tendency in you that you could go down this path. Because I think that's another thing. That's an interesting thing, that we've all got these certain tendencies, that can, what's that phrase, that word, lead us not into temptation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oscar Wilde said, I can resist anything except temptation.
Temptation. Yeah.
And I love that quote because, in this life, we've got free will and there's temptation everywhere in this world, but some of these things can take us into places that are not part of our soul contract. And it's
and
kind of
actually
recognizing
and
that
actually not being authentic with who you are. I'm not saying
not
don't
being
have the big
authentic.
house or the big car, but not to
Yeah,
get carried away with it, because actually it's not your true essence to be only that.
exactly that. And how amazing, incredible that the medicine can show you that. And it often does that in sort of cartoon form. My wife, Nicola, she journeyed for the first time. And she won't mind me saying this because she's talked about it publicly. She journeyed with it, about a year ago for the first time. And Nick had a very different upbringing to me in that she was never into drugs when she was young. She never drank. She'd go out to clubs and dance, but she never did the whole, you know,
Yeah, the
heavy booze
rails kind of,
off
yeah.
the road in that way. So, for her to journey with the medicine, it was a big thing. But one of the things she got in the medicine was she was journeying with it and she had quite an uplifting, positive journey. But she'd have these little cartoon characters. She said she was journeying through outer space and these little cartoon characters would be saying to her, don't be so serious. And they were kind of singing this message to her over
Oh,
and over again. And she got a really amazing message from the simplicity of that, these little cartoon characters, because she had a little bit of a tendency to take things too seriously. So suddenly she was getting this don't take things too seriously. And it was a really revealing thing for her, something that just
yeah,
wow, and it changed the way she was after that. It took her in a different direction. So sometimes with the medicine, it throws up these things, these images that are so unexpected, cartoon
yeah,
pictures or game show hosts, and
yeah, but so
but it's
revealing, but actually
so revealing.
accelerates your path, your spiritual path.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's amazing. And I was hoping to journey this summer, because this was another amazing thing that happened out here. I got to a point, we got settled out in Portugal
yeah,
a couple of years ago. And I said to Nick, I said, I really feeling the calling again. I want to journey. But, we got two young kids, so I didn't want to go to Peru. But I was really feeling, we didn't know a lot of people here at that time because we'd not been here that long. But I said to Nick, yeah, I'm feeling it strongly. And at the time I'd put an old barbecue because we just moved into a new house. So there was an old barbecue. So I put it on Facebook, the local Facebook, and said, look, if it's 30 euros to anyone wants to buy this thing. And I had a load of people message me. And there was one guy had a really sort of spiritual Facebook page. And he said, look, I'm really interested in it. And then I said, yeah, by all means, come along. And I kind of just was drawn to this guy.
yeah.
And he came along, him and his wife, and we sat in my back garden. And for 2 hours solid, we talked. And it turned out he'd seen one of my interviews about a month before that I'd done for the Time of the Sixth Sun film. So
Hmm.
I'd
I
had,
yeah, I'd seen you post that. I haven't actually seen it yet. Where just quickly, where can I watch that?
so if you go to Time of the Sun, timeofthesixthsun.net, I think it is, or dot.
Okay.
I'll send you the link afterwards.
Okay, yeah.
You can go to their wire, and every so often they make the film free. You can watch it for free.
Okay.
So I had a tiny part in this film and had seen the film and then watched my interview and then came along and we sat in the back garden. And would you believe it? He ran ceremonies
Wow.
along the coast. So anyway, I went along to their next ceremony and had the most blissful experience. Incredible. Uh,
Really?
yeah. And so how amazing is that? That I decided I want a journey, and then suddenly this guy who's going to buy my barbecue came along, and there I was journeying.
I know this the synchronicity is you can't write it, can you?
No, so I think for anyone who wants to journey, put it out there, project it out there, and if it's right for you, it will happen. I did actually have experience a ceremony in Marbella when I was in Spain, and I went along to this. It was a big mansion they'd rented right on the coast in Marbella, and there was about 30 or 40 people in the main lounge. It was a big lounge. And they'd flown this shaman over from South America, and there was no real connection with him. He
Yeah.
didn't, he felt like he almost seemed he was a bit bored, and it wasn't run very well. And I didn't journey at all. I drank the medicine, but I didn't get anything from it. And I was distracted by other people. So that was the only ceremony where I didn't have a good experience. And it
Yeah.
wasn't a bad experience. It was just the energy of it was commercial and it wasn't set up right. And so
Yeah.
you've got to find people who are doing it authentically and for the right
For the right
reasons.
reasons. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really respect that. That's
Yeah.
incredible. Oh, I love that. And I love the way that you can utilize plant medicine to propel you on this journey, and it can, it can create quantum leaps through this as
It
well, what's
can.
holding you
It
back.
can. It
Hypnotherapy
can.
as well, but also this.
I always felt, the medicine, ayahuasca is like, it can be like 50 therapy sessions in one night.
Yeah.
It can be so intense and so challenging at times, but it can also, liberate you and free you up in so many different ways that, you come out the other side, feeling like you've been, 10 rounds with Mike Tyson, but
Yeah.
you get lighter and you stay in the medicine for weeks and months afterwards. That energy stays with you, but eventually you kind of integrate back into everyday life, and but the wisdom is always there. It stays with you.
Yeah.
Have you journeyed? Have you?
Not yet. I'm looking into it, but
Yeah.
feel very, very called to. Yeah. See,
And
I've wanted to do
I'm
it for a long
well,
time, but I've had a lot of bereavements in the last 3 years, a lot of deaths, and it just
right,
just didn't feel like the right time. But I feel very, very called to do it now.
right, okay.
Yeah. So I'm
Well,
looking.
that's interesting. Again, I've told you that randomly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and for me, I've not kind of felt. I feel very drawn to ayahuasca, but not so much with the toad medicine. For whatever reason, I just don't feel that. And
That
yes,
pull.
no, no, not at the
Yeah.
moment. Maybe it'll come at some point, but
Oh, yeah, I
amazing.
feel I feel really called to do it now. Very, very called. And yeah,
Yeah,
my intention is very strong as well. And I've lost a lot of people, unfortunately. And even though I'm a medium, I need something to kind of accelerate me more with connecting with them. So yeah, that would
yeah,
um
yeah. It calls you when the time's right.
when
It
the
just
time
calls
is
you,
right.
and
Yeah,
the door's open, and it's incredible. Yeah, so.
yeah.
I will. I don't know if I'll journey again this year because I didn't want to join those ceremonies halfway through. Because
No.
if there's a group and they've done iboga and then they're doing ayahuasca, they've built up a certain energy. So
Yeah, you'd want to go kind of fresh, wouldn't you?
yeah, and we
Yeah,
might. Yeah, we've been talking about getting a private group together just for ayahuasca. Uh,
yeah. And just finally, Glenn, what's your advice to anyone? I think we touched on this earlier, but anyone that's just in this kind of density and they feel that they don't have like the means or the resources to get out of it, like cost of living crisis and just everything that's going on, they feel very, very trapped. What would you say to someone like that? So I know we've touched on it before, but just in this
yeah.
in the kind of, okay, let me give you an example, like inner city areas,
Mm,
council estates where it's a very low dense
mm,
vibration. How
mm.
can someone really try and raise their vibration when they're in a kind of a toxic environment? What would you say to
I
people
think
wanting in that situation?
in that immediate situation, I think I would say that you need to protect your energy as much as you can. So, just simply visualizing a protective white shield all around you every
Yeah,
day,
yeah,
making that shield super strong, no negative energy can pass through. Imagine that you're only projecting out positive energy. No one can, leech off of you because you're protected. Using crystals for that as well. Black tourmaline is a good crystal. If
yeah,
ever I go out, there's parties in town in Lagos, we go down there, but I always wear black tourmaline because I'm
yeah,
aware that when I'm in crowds, and we find as well when we're out, sometimes people gravitate towards you. They're picking up on your energy,
yeah.
and
The light.
the light, you know, and you get that people come and they sometimes we were sitting in a restaurant a week ago and this guy didn't stop staring at us. And it's that they don't know why, but they're picking up on a light or a frequency. And so you've got to protect yourself when you're out. So that's an important one. But really, you know, if you're in a situation like that and you feel stuck, you feel trapped, you've really got to get that hunger and that desire to get out
Yeah.
of that situation, to change your circumstances.
Yeah.
It's that fire, that determination that got me out of that council house into a more abundant life. I was so determined to
Yeah.
live a different life. And I literally read every book I could, you know,
Yeah.
and nowadays, you know, I've got a recording on YouTube called Awaken and Ascend. It's a free
Okay.
recording, so you can check that out. And
Okay. Yeah.
it's a very deep spiritual recording. And I put free versions. They're normally a little bit shorter than the main version, but I put them on YouTube. And that one is one, if you listen to that every day, it will really tune you into those higher frequency energies. So it's called Awaken and Ascend.
Awaken
Uh,
and Ascend. Yeah.
Type that in with my name and you'll find it. You know, listen to that every day. You know, get some books, you know, from the library if your resources are tight. You know, change your diet. You know, eat foods that, you know, bring you nutrition and, you know, raise your energy. Fresh food, no processed foods.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, stay away from the news, mainstream media. I don't watch any
Yeah.
telly these days.
No,
Just
me
don't watch
neither.
it. Nothing. You know, it's just
Yeah.
when you do watch it, it's like a bolt out of the blue. You know, you think, are these,
Yeah.
and they really telling us this is news? It's
Yeah.
mad.
Very fear-based. Yeah.
So yeah, you've got to really focus and do everything you can to take yourself on a completely different path and believe that there's this abundant, happy, joyous life waiting for you. And it's something you deserve as well. You've got to believe you deserve it. That's
Yeah.
another thing. Sometimes people don't always feel they deserve it because that was drummed into them as a kid.
Yeah. But also,
Yes.
also really, like you said, have that desire, have that fire inside you to really make the necessary changes. And like
Yeah.
Joe Dispenza says, that become bigger than your current environment, become bigger than
Yeah.
expand your energy field. And then once
Yeah.
your world changes, that will attract the outer world.
And it will take you out of that as well. If your energy expands and grows out of that energy field, you'll naturally, some way, the universe will find a way to get you into a new energy field that does match your vibration.
Exactly. Yeah.
And and that, as I said at the very beginning, that's important to resonate with the place that you live in.
Yeah.
And you know, I know people out here in Portugal. There's a lot of people that live off grid out here. You know, they
Yeah.
buy a very cheap caravan at home, come out, and they live on the coast. And you know, my friends who run the ceremonies along the coast, they did that with three young kids when they were uh,
Wow.
in the 90s, and they just bought an old bus and they traveled around the world in it and then it settled here. And they lived on a beach in Portugal for 3 years with no income and
No way.
no income.
Yeah.
Kay used to cut hair and
Yeah.
Jason used to do a few little things, you know, like very basic things. And they you know, survived and lived on a beach
Wow.
3 years. And then
Yeah.
eventually their story is amazing. The place they live in now is like it's worth €1 million. It's this amazing plot. And because the whole of the Algarve has rocketed in price, they've ended up, you know, and it's just their abundance journey. You know, they're not business people or
Mm,
anything like that. And it's the way the universe works. It's amazing. So
yeah.
you've got to be brave as well. You've got to take chances, you know, step out your comfort zone and
Yes.
take risks, big risks. You know, if you're not happy where you are, you have to take risks and be brave. And you know, I kind of always had that in me. You know, that was the thing. I wasn't afraid of taking risks. And sometimes you fall flat on your face. Sometimes they work out, but normally the ones that work out are the things that
It's
transform
worth,
your life.
yeah, and it's worth the risk, isn't it?
It always is.
It
Yeah.
always is, yeah. And if
Yeah.
it isn't, then you learn a huge lesson and it will hopefully propel you on a different trajectory anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Everything that happens is a lesson, isn't it?
it really is.
You
It
know,
is. Oh,
yeah.
thank you so much for coming on, Glenn. That was incredible. And you
You're
know,
welcome.
I've been a huge fan of your work, as you know, for a number of years now. But what I really love is your story and your transformation of where you are now is a completely different place to where you first started, and I think your testament that you can overcome adversity from your childhood or whatever life throws at you. You can change,
Yeah.
evolve, and come out of the other side. So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure chatting to you. Anytime in the future, I'd be happy to jump on. So
Oh, thanks
yeah,
so
we're
much,
on
Glenn.
the same understanding. Take care.
Definitely, I'm going to go and watch your astral travel, listen to your astral travel meditation now, and
Brilliant.
hopefully, yeah, have some out of
Let
body
me know how you get on. I'd
experiences.
love to hear how you get on with it.
I will do for sure.
Yeah. Take care.
Thanks so much, Glenn.
Namaste.
Namaste. Bye.